Well, here we are at Digi-Gurdy World HQ, and this video I'm going to show you how to rewire the cable to and you see my little whoops, well, it would help if I could find them. Oh yeah, my screens. Right, this is the screen I've been using. It's from Adafruit, and you can see it's marked ground V in 3 volts out, CS reset, DC, CLK and data, and they're also on the front there. And in the Digi-Gurdys there's a row of pins soldered in here, and then there's a female header that clips on. So what I'm going to do is rewire the wires as they come out of the circuit board and joined to the header that plugs into the screen. So you don't have to remove the screen from your mounting in the Gurdy to do this, okay, which is convenient, and that's why I did it that way. Of course, he lied. But no, generally I've made the Gurdy so that you can unplug things and change things relatively easily for the discerning hobbyist. So here we go. So here's a Gurdy that's ready, and I'm just going to make these changes because then we can have it run Basil's latest code, which uses a different screen driver and has to be wired to the Teensy in a different way. Not because it doesn't work, because it runs faster, and because the Teensy board runs faster without the screen delaying it all the time, it means the buzz sensor, the rotating wheel here, doesn't skip a beat, as it were. So what have we got here? Well, okay, so we've got the crank, the brake system. So you need to undo the middle hatch, and I've already done it on this one I made earlier, and you can see there's the Teensy board there, which you don't have to unplug it, but I'd suggest that you do unplug it. And the reason is we're going to solder a wire here directly to the pin that's 6 pin along from this end. It's pin 38. So we're going to count in 6, make a mark, and then we're going to solder a little wire just there to where the solder blob is, without shorting anything else out that's in the vicinity. So the way to not short it out is to actually remove it and do it that way. We're also going to unplug this pin header from the screen and just loop it out here so we can rearrange the wires to it. And I've made a chart because it's very easy to get this all wrong. This is how they were wired. So the wire from the circuit board, labelled pin 9 if you like, now goes, that's the data by the way, now becomes pin 11, and so on down the list, but I'll explain it to you, don't worry. The first thing to do is label each of these wires. So I'm going to reach in here. It's actually best to use your fingers like this, not your thumb and forefinger, unless you've got little tiny hands. Do all of that. You can just get them and try without pulling on the wires themselves. Right, you see it's starting to come off there. Bring that out. Now the next thing to do, straighten this out, otherwise you'll get really confused, like that. So now we know that the order of these pins along here is the same as along here, because you've untwisted it all. Okay. Now what I also do, which seems bizarre, is I get a great big blob of blue tack, and I've got a spare screen plugged into it. I plug that into there, and it helps me work out what's being wired to what. But before I do that, I'm going to label each wire with its own label, so it matches the pin numbers on the circuit board here, because these solder points connect to pins on the Teensy, and each solder point has a number by it. So the one with the 13 by it connects to pin 30, is pin 13 from the teensy board, okay, and so on. So we'll make some little labels. That's the first thing to do. Right, I love it when these come. It looks like a pack of bacon from the supermarket, but actually it's not. It's how my PCBs come. Now the thing to look at is here. So that's the side, this is the back, hang on. So it's like that when it sits inside the Gurdy. And then look at the numbering. And look very carefully. Let me get a pointer. Right, I don't know if you can see this, but you've got ground. Then you've got 3V3, that's 3 volts power out to the screen. That attaches to the VN wire on the screen module, by the way, not the 3V3 pin on the screen, because that's actually an output for another accessory devices. So anyway, ground, 3V3. Now look at this. If you go this way, 9, OL9, OL10, OL11, OL13. Notice these are in different order. OL13, OL12. So it's 9, 10, 11. It's not 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's 9, 10, 11, 13, 12. And these two are the power to the screen. If you get the 12 and 13 the wrong way round, it's not going to work. So bear that in mind. So that's why I suggest you label each wire. So we're going to put a label on each wire representing which of these holes it's connected to. So I'm going to make some numbers that are numbered labels, 9, 10, 11, 13, 12. I'm going to use some sticky squares, and I just make them like this. 9, whoops, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then I'm going to cut them out and stick them to each of the wires. Right, there you go. So just as these wires go 9, 10, 11, 13, 12, and then the power and ground, on here we've got, I've labelled them 9, 10, 11, 13, 12, ground, never mind the fact it's got red dots on it, and VN. So the wire that's from 3.3V here, which is 3.3 volts out, goes to this pin. Notice how this pin, there's 8 pins here, there's 7 wires here, yeah. Notice this pin has nothing connected to it. That's because on these screen modules, okay, looking at it that way around, just to confuse everybody, 3VO here is 3 volts out. These screens allow an accessory to be powered from the screen. So that's ground. The 3.3 volt wire goes to VN, not to 3V. Just forget that isn't even there. Now that's useful because it stops you, it's a little reminder of which way round to plug this onto here, which side has the gap. So that's great. Next thing we're going to do is desolder these few wires. You can leave those two, they're in the right place. Now I'm lucky enough to have a spare screen, so what I'm doing is to remind myself what connects to what. I've got a spare screen plugged into it, and it's held here with an enormous blob of blue tack. It's messy, but it works, so don't knock it. Okay, so you can see I've done that. Now the next thing I need to do, probably should have done it first, is extract the teensy board. So I'm going to cheat. I've got some, to be honest, these are really valuable instruments. Curved forceps, they lock, they don't have to lock, but okay, you can buy them in pairs for some reason, and they're on eBay and Amazon, and they just make this sort of thing so much easier, to be honest. So I'm going to unplug that there, right, put it out of the way, and then I can't film and do this together, but basically with my little finger under each end of the teensy, one little finger there, one little finger, whoops, under there, you wiggle it up, and it'll come, it'll unplug. Right, so I've unplugged it. I've got the Gurdy mount on the table at a jaunty angle, just right for doing this sort of thing, going in, doing surgery on it. Here's the teensy, and the pin I want is number 38. Now, easiest to remember is if you start, so when it's in there like that. Okay, it's the 6th pin from this end. So you think, well, you could reach in and do it, and the answer is yes, you could, but you don't want to mess it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you see how that 6th pin lines up this row of holes here. So that's a good way. They're an arrow pointing to the correct pin. If you look really closely, hang on, just there is a 38 printed just to the left and in, but it's the one that lines up with the row of holes. Okay, so I'm going to solder a tiny wire there. Right, there you are, reasonably neatly done, and the wire is very short and the end doesn't stick out and touch other things. Okay, it's useful if you're over the age of about 40 to have a pair of magnifying spectacles, or you could use one of these type things, which again, it's like a headband with clip-in lenses. You may laugh, but they're really good for this kind of work. Otherwise you just can't see what you're doing. I do have one of these lamps with a magnifier in it, okay, this sort of thing, but to be honest, a pair of glasses that magnified 2.5, 3 times, just cheap ones from like online, they work fine. Just to note, when you plug this back in, it will loosely go in about 1/3 of the way. See how this is still quite loose? So you can check your pins are actually in the holes, and then when they are, you just spreading the load evenly over the whole chip. It should just go in with gentle pressure. There. That was a bit more than gentle pressure actually. Anyway, that's in now, you can see there, and we have our wire coming off from pin 38. So from the chart, I should really just label that data. Right, from the chart, this is the old wiring, this is our new wiring. So look at this little chart. So data, see, label there, data has wire number 11, pin 11 connected to it. So we find our wire 11 and we solder it to there, and then we work our way along. So the next one's clock, CLK, and we see that clock is pin 13. So we find wire 13 and solder that to there, so the second pin in. I find it easier to work this way, but you just work your way through, so I'll do that next. Right, so CS, this one, 4th one along, we saw was pin 10, and you can see I've wired 10, if you can see that, there, to CS. The next one, reset, RES, there, RST, sorry, to that wire, to that pin you connect your wire from pin 38 on the teensy. So you can see I've done that there. So we carry on now. So DC is next. We look at the chart. DC goes to 9. So we find wire number 9, which is that one. I'm going to solder that there. So I've done those now. So the remainder, if you know, we had, if you remember, reset was pin 38. Then DC was pin 9, was wire 9, if you like. There we are, number 9 connected to that. Then the next, let's just triple check that, is a 9, yes. And then we have clock, CLK, this one. 13 goes to that, wire number 13, so there's wire 13, and yes, it's going to clock. And then wire 11 goes to data, which is the end one. Data wire 11. Now you're going, there's a wire left over, 12. What should we do with that? We don't need it anymore, so we can snip that off. No, I wouldn't snip it off yet, just in case this doesn't work and you want to revert back to how it was before. Which brings me to the point, you might want to ask yourself, why are these wires in such a funny order? You know, you've got the 12 and 13 switched. The reason was, when you solder the ribbon cable to your Adafruit screen, you go along in the same way. The wires just solder on in the same sequence as down here, apart from this gap. But of course we've just changed all that now, so none of that applies anymore. But that's why the PCB was designed with 11 and 12 reversed in terms of the order. It was to make soldering this end easy, because you just kept the ribbon cable flat and just soldered them up into, you know, in sequence. So just remember that in case you want to change your mind and go back to the previous arrangement. So that's correct. So just so this doesn't short anything out, I'm going to cut the tip off, but I'm not actually going to shorten the whole wire or remove it, certainly not yet. The other thing to remember is, don't forget, just move the light, to plug the USB cable here back into there. And remember, it's the flatter side, the wider side, upwards. And just be careful with it, because it's a bit fragile. And again, if you use some sort of tool like this, or needle nose pliers would work, you can just jiggle it till it pops in. So I've unplugged this from my aide memoire spare screen, if you like, and we've got to plug that back onto here. Now you remember, these two are the power, then there's a gap, there's a pin that's not used, and if you look down here, it's got ground this side. So that's the side the ground goes to, and if you remember, ground is the end one here, despite the fact my wire's got red dots on it. It's ground, power, and then all these communication lines, so it needs to sort of be bent a bit like that. Try and make it neat and plug down like that, making sure nothing rubs this rotating wheel. And again, it's a bit fiddly, take your time, make sure none of these bend over and touch each other, which is a bit of a nightmare, and just plug it back into the screen. Right, so that's reasonably neat. I've chosen to take it around this push button. I made sure none of the wires are touching each other. The extra wires also around here. Nothing is anywhere near the rotating chopper wheel, and if this works okay, I may just put a little dob of hot glue maybe here somewhere. Just bear in mind with the hot glue, if you look at this part of the button, if you press it, you see it moves. Yeah, and there's one the other side here. So I'm not going to splurge hot glue down here, because then the button won't move. So just bear that in mind. So stay off to the side, just a little bit here maybe, we'll just hold it nicely in place. Next thing then is we're going to load the software. Now there's loads of software versions, it gets a bit confusing, so I'm going to load what is currently the latest build by Basil, and then we'll see if this works. Okay, we're back to the Digi-Gurdy forum, and you can see in this post from Basil, here's the link to where he keeps all the software. So it's github.com/basmonk/Digi-Gurdy-baz-wiki. Click on that, and right, here we are. And then if we go down, there's a big table, right, which keeps getting modified, I think, but right, so which one do we want to use? You want the testing branch. Click that. Right, code, download zip. So you download the zip. It doesn't matter if I download it again. Okay, just to show you. Right, so there it is, it's downloaded. Open in folder, show in folder, sorry, there it is. Right click it and extract all the files. Do I want to extract the files? Yes, click. Right, there it goes. Right, and it's actually sitting here. If we open that, open it again, right, you'll see there's a folder called builds. Open the builds folder. See, these are all these so-called hex files, right? They're all slightly different. See, there's things here for different boards. Right, you want this one, HWSPI, that means hardware SPI Teensy 4.1, hardware HW. That means we're going to use the built-in driver hardware on the Teensy board to run the screen, which means when the screen updates it doesn't slow down the code, which was causing the glitch with the chopper wheel and the crank. So wherever you saved this, just remember where it is, because you're going to come to this again later. So we're going to come out of that, come off the interweb. Right, we've got the lead plugged in. There we are, to our hurdy-gurdy. Right, and if you remember, there was a previous video on this. We go to our C drive, we go to ProDown Files x86, we go to Arduino, we open hardware. See, it says Teensy. Ignore that, don't open Teensy, open Tools. Right, you can see here Teensy. Double click that. See, this pops up. Right, now here we're going to tell it, this sort of is the loady thing which loads things onto the Teensy board. Okay, and we're going to open our hex files. We're going to click on that. Right, now it's actually gone back to where it was. Remember the builds that we downloaded, the builds folder. So I'm going to go to the hardware SPI one. I'm going to click it. I'm going to put open, click. Right, now just forget about that, minimize it. Okay, now we're still here. Okay, tools. Right, Teensy reboot. Now with a bit of luck, the Teensy will load the software and the screen will light up because we haven't made a soldering mistake and it's all perfect. If you have made a soldering mistake, nothing will happen here. So cross your fingers. Teensy reboot. It's a double click. It should do that. Right. Ho. Right, now what have we got? Version 2.3.1, and you can see the layout has gone to the kind of Top Gun type layout. So just remember, when you start, you go to other options, which is key 4, the 4th key along the bottom row, and you clear the EEPROM, which is the memory. It just wipes the memory, if you like. I'll just check I did do that. Yeah, there we are. Right. I'm going to go to other options. No, I'm going to load a preset. You see how now we have do re mi system. You can change the way the screen is configured if you want. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to say accept that. Right, so it should let me play now. Whoops. Right, trying to do it with one hand. Once you're in play mode, we're in playing mode, you can hit the pause button. It gives you another menu of things, one of which is other. Go to other. Right, and one of those options is screen configuration, number 2. Press number 2. Right, you see how you can have ABC or do re mi. Enable buzz indicator. I'm going to click yes to that. Right, you see that's enabled now. And then to go back, remember to go back or out of menus is always top left. So press it once, go back again, go back again. Right, and we're back to playing menu. Now I can't do it with one hand, but if I try and flick this quickly, right, if I go, hang on, right, you see how that square flashed? Okay, time for a quick test then. plug in the lead, plug in the adapter, plug in the iPad, open the iPad, put in the passcode, open BS69, power's on, load a preset, accept it. That seems pretty good. I need to fiddle with the drum brake, but that's pretty good. We'll just check it works wirelessly. Just plug in the wireless dongle. There we are. Power it up. See if it pairs. Connected. Preset. Yeah, still works. Good. Happy with that.